I knew something was off the second I joined the morning Zoom and saw his hair gel reflecting sunlight like it had clearance of its own. 8:59 a.m., Monday. I'm sipping black coffee in a NASA hoodie I got at a cybersecurity conference 6 years ago, thinking we're doing the usual ticket review, policy updates, maybe some grumbling about vendor patches. But no, there he is, Sean with a big W, our brand new VP of Operations, looking like a toothpaste commercial had a bastard child with a LinkedIn influencer. He scans the call like he's blessing us with his gaze. Then his eyes land on me. "Is that your work attire?" he says with a grin that could curdle milk. I blink. "It's a hoodie. I'm remote. This is a security sync, not a gala." He leans forward like he's about to drop a TED talk. "We're a federal contractor, Rebecca. Image matters. I expect professional standards, even on camera. Now, I've been with this company 11 years. I onboarded half the team. I've passed 6 DoD audits without a single finding. I've written more policy than he's probably read in his entire career. My clearance paperwork is thicker than his resume. But sure, let's talk optics." So I raise my mug, smile like a tired wolf, and say, "I secure missile guidance systems in my pajamas. The servers don't seem to mind." He doesn't laugh. Oh no. Sean with a W smirks like he's waited his whole life for a power trip that fits in a Zoom square. "Well," he says slowly, "consider this your last meeting. Attire violation. You're done here. No HR, no warning, just click. I'm out of the room." Before I go on, real quick, if you're listening and haven't hit subscribe, take 2 seconds and do it now. Like the video too. 97% of folks don't, and honestly, it helps us keep telling these stories, especially the ones where you know someone's about to regret underestimating the wrong person. Anyway, I sat there, staring at my blank screen, coffee still warm. For about 10 seconds, I considered calling HR, but then a thought hit me like a slap. The Department of Defense hasn't updated our contact file yet, which means, legally, I'm still listed as the named security agent for the upcoming $145 million launch. It's not a job title, it's a designation, a compliance slot with a name hardwired into the federal continuity chain. You don't just fire that person. You file a 60-day notice, you submit a reassignment request, you pass an internal continuity audit and a federal background confirmation before kickoff. None of which Sean with a W knows, because he's too busy enforcing Zoom dress codes like he's running a Baptist telethon. I didn't say a word. I didn't email anyone. I didn't log back in. I just closed the laptop and started printing out Section 12 of the Federal Contractor Onboarding Agreement, the one that says, "No launch, disbursement, or contract activation may proceed without verbal acknowledgement from the named security agent as listed in the Federal Continuity Register." Guess who that still was? Not the VP's gym buddy he planned to slide in. Me. And if you know anything about federal compliance, you know what happens when you hit go without your security agent in the room. Spoiler, you don't get very far. I didn't slam the laptop, didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't even curse. Just sat there for a beat, staring at my reflection in the black screen like it owed me something. 11 years of locking down servers, writing protocols that kept federal agents from breathing down our necks, pulling 16-hour patch marathons while half the exec team was off playing golf, and I get canned over a hoodie. But I didn't protest, because I knew something Sean didn't. I walked over to my cabinet, an old fireproof thing that still smells faintly of toner and printer heat, and pulled out the continuity binder. Federal side, joint venture onboarding, Project Thornwatch, tabs color-coded, dates scribbled in red Sharpie. Found the one I needed, Section 14B, named Security Agent of Record. That role isn't symbolic. It's logged with the feds, tied to my personal clearance ID, and hardwired into every security schema they approve. It's not something you can swap out like bad cologne or middle management. Typed in my credentials, still valid. Navigated to the continuity registry. There it was, staring back at me like an old friend. NSA designate, Thornwatch, Rebecca Halden, clearance ID 7A09934C. Effective through May 29th, it was April 18th, and the launch was in 6 days. I didn't smile, didn't gloat, I just sat. It was the kind of silence you only earn after watching too many arrogant men crash headfirst into the rules you live by. The kind of stillness where your blood runs cold, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of knowing you've already won, and all you have to do is nothing. I didn't call HR, didn't email legal. I let the silence do its work. But curiosity, that still had a pulse. So I logged into the back end of the compliance portal, not the one most staff see, but the contractor side archive where finalized policy uploads are mirrored before federal sync. You don't get in without senior credentials. Mine hadn't been revoked. Yet. Searched Thorn Watch. 14 results. 9 PDFs, 3 Excel files, 2 email thread printouts redacted. I opened the latest one, a thread labeled Pre-Kickoff Checklist, Share W Fed Liaison. Middle of the chain, black bar over most of it, but one line made my heart tap the brakes. NSA verbal check, Rebecca H. scheduled, not former, not pending replacement, not TBD, just scheduled. They were still using my name. Probably had no idea what it meant to change it, or assumed some intern could file the right form and the feds would look the other way. They always do, until they don't. Sean might think he cut me loose like a loose thread on a dress shirt, but this thread, it's looped through the entire fabric. And when you yank it, the whole damn thing starts to unravel. 2 days after the hoodie execution, I heard through the grapevine that Sean had found his guy. Name was Trent something, mid-30s, crypto bro haircut, ex-VC startup consultant turned InfoSec visionary. Showed up to the Monday sync wearing a tailored button-down and quoting Sun Tzu like he just discovered war was a concept. LinkedIn said he optimized digital trust ecosystems, whatever that means in actual English. They rushed him in like he was the second coming of Fort Knox, gave him a temporary badge, admin access, a company MacBook, and a Slack announcement that read, "Welcome our new Director of Information Security, Trent Vance, excited for the innovation he brings to our federal portfolio." Innovation, my ass. Meanwhile, I'm in sweats, watching reruns of Fringe and sipping instant coffee while monitoring the only system that really matters, the federal background verification portal. See, when someone takes over a designated compliance role, like say named security agent, they get funneled into a clearance confirmation pipeline. Not optional, not skippable. Trent wasn't in it. I searched 5 different ways, so I checked again, and then I got the ping. Flag. Incomplete security profile submitted, request rejected. Reason. Missing prior NSA relinquishment. Translation. You can't take a seat if it's still got my name welded to it. That's when internal IT started scrubbing my credentials. They locked my VPN, revoked my GitHub permissions, wiped my email archive. Rookie move. They didn't kill my personal vault logs or the mirrored chain of custody tracker I built last year, the one outside the network, replicated to 3 cloud endpoints and an offline NAS I keep in my garage next to the generator. So I watched as Trent opened a test port on our staging server without flagging it to audit. Watched as he skipped briefing logs on the new joint asset policy. Probably didn't even know those are mandatory under Section 9. Watched as he swaggered onto Slack, asking why encryption keys weren't managed via NFT architecture. It was like watching a raccoon crawl into a nuclear silo with a lighter. And I didn't lift a finger. But I did start printing. Pulled up every relevant clause from the federal contract. Highlighted the ones I knew they'd trip over. Clause 8C, NSA authority must be formally vacated via signed transfer with federal witness acknowledgement. Clause 12A, no operational kickoff without NSA verbal reconfirmation within 96 hours of activation. Clause 14B, breach of security continuity protocol voids all indemnity protections. 11 years of being the invisible backbone of compliance, and this clown show thought they could Photoshop me out of the org chart and call it strategy. So I sat at my dining room table, printer humming, each page landing in a neat little pile like a legal guillotine. And in the background, I could already hear the screws rattling loose. Day before kickoff, and the internal comms lit up like someone stepped on a mine. Slack threads got longer, emails started hitting after 10 p.m., and every Zoom status flipped to red or do not disturb. That only happens when someone realizes a fuse is already burning and they can't find the fire extinguisher. The VP? Oh, Sean was thrilled. I saw the internal newsletter. He wrote a whole paragraph about how the modernization of our security leadership is a bold step forward. Said Trent was the kind of forward-thinking expert the federal space needs. There was even a photo of them standing side by side in front of a screen with a PowerPoint that said Next Gen Trust Fabric. Looked like a TEDx talk sponsored by vape pens. Meanwhile, I was folding laundry in my garage when my phone buzzed with a familiar ping, a forwarded email from one of my old teammates. No subject line, just a panicked CC string and a red exclamation mark. Subject header read, Urgent, NSA pre-confirm for Thornwatch launch. And that's when it got good. In the thread, buried between over-apologetic legal interns and a very pissed-off logistics coordinator, sat a message from the federal side. Per continuity protocol, the NSA of record must deliver verbal pre-affirmation within 24 hours of initial asset sync. Please advise, is he attending or not? This is non-compliant. He. I know I shouldn't have laughed, but I did. Just once. Short, sharp, right into the quiet hum of my dryer. Because even the feds didn't know they'd tried to replace me. My name was still in their systems, still on their contact sheets. And now they were asking, very politely, why no one had confirmed I'd be in the room tomorrow. And that's when I knew they hadn't told them. Not legal, not federal liaison, not anyone. They really thought they could do a 0-day swap on the security head on a federal contract without tripping any wires, like changing a printer cartridge. I scrolled down. Sure enough, someone from our side had replied. Mid-level operations staffer named Cami, who meant well but didn't know the landmines she was walking on. We'll have that verbal confirmed by morning. Trent is fully prepped. No mention of designation transfer. No signed release. No notification to the feds. I raised one eyebrow. That's all it took. Just a flicker of movement as I stared at my phone and imagined the look on the auditor's face tomorrow when Trent tried to say his name in my place. Because what happens next isn't just a breach of etiquette, it's a breach of protocol. And that doesn't end with a slap on the wrist. It ends with a freeze. The kickoff call started like all high-dollar federal launches do. Slick slide decks, tight suits, and 30-something squares blinking on a Zoom grid like a cockpit. You could smell the overconfidence through the screen. Everyone knew the contract was big, north of $145 million once all phases cleared, with 2 cabinet-adjacent agencies watching from the sidelines. Everyone showed up on time. Except reality. They ran through intros like it was a ribbon cutting. Sean with a W looked like a man who'd just married himself in Vegas. Trent had a fresh haircut and a look on his face like he thought he was going to sell blockchain to the Pentagon. Federal procurement officers nodded politely. Legal teams hovered with their mics muted and their cameras off, the way they do when they're expecting someone to crash through a window. Then the federal compliance officer, gray hair, steel voice, not the kind of man who smiles often, unmuted himself. Before we begin, he said, eyes scanning the virtual room, we'll need a verbal confirm from the named security agent on file for Thornwatch, per continuity protocol. That sentence hung in the air like a snapped power line. Silence. No one moved. Sean's face twitched once. He turned slightly toward Trent's square, like maybe if he looked casual enough, no one would notice they'd skip the part where you actually assign someone new. Trent, to his credit, looked like he'd just swallowed a fork. He leaned in toward his camera, then leaned back, hovered over his mic, then hit mute. Again. The federal guy waited, didn't blink. We'll need that confirmed before proceeding, he repeated. Per your onboarding documents, the designated NSA must verbally acknowledge role and readiness. Clock started at 09:02. More silence. A cough from someone in facilities. The general counsel's mic flicked on, then off again, like she couldn't quite form the sentence she needed. I watched from my garage, laptop open, audio off, but the feed hot because someone, somewhere, forgot to remove me from a secondary dial-in list. I didn't need to say anything. I just wanted to see it happen. And there it was, the unraveling. Not with screaming, not with finger-pointing, just a room full of overpaid adults realizing they'd hit the wrong lever, and now the ride was grinding to a stop. The federal officer clicked something off-screen. We'll suspend proceedings until NSA confirmation is complete. If unresolved by 1700, this session will be marked non-compliant. And that was it. Meeting suspended, no fanfare, just a dozen blinking faces and a silence so thick it could have been printed. That's the thing about traps built from paper and protocol. They don't need bait. They just need someone arrogant enough to skip reading page 2. By noon, the word freeze had gone nuclear inside the building. Not a tech issue, not a funding delay, a full-scale, federally issued temporary compliance hold. Thornwatch, Our biggest joint contract since 2013 was now officially a $145 million paperweight. Counsel started hemorrhaging emails like arterial spray. Subject lines went from clarification re NSA protocol to urgent. Security failure, action needed in under 4 hours. I wasn't supposed to see any of it, but when you write the compliance infrastructure from the ground up, you tend to leave a few dead drops in your wake. Back channels, legacy folder permissions, audit logs that echo back to their maker. The leaked thread that mattered most from inside legal. Paralegal attached a PDF with the subject line, Termination Review, Rebecca Halden. The timestamp, 2 hours before my firing. The kicker, no check of the continuity register, no consultation with compliance, no federal notification. Just one line from Sean. Terminate wash cause attire. Replace Trent. Fast track onboarding, make it clean. Make it clean. God bless that smug little bastard for writing it down. They always do. They think writing make it clean makes it look clinical, professional. But all it really does is prove they knew it was dirty to begin with. The founder got looped in by 2:17 p.m. Someone finally pinged him when the freeze letter went upstream. He doesn't join Zooms often, retired from daily ops 2 years ago. But this one, he dialed straight into the crisis line and asked only one question. Who authorized the removal of the federal compliance officer without succession paperwork? Silence. Then another email leaked, from legal to the board. We are in material breach if NSA compliance is not restored before 1700 hours. The federal liaison has requested a full review of internal security governance. Recommend immediate corrective action. I was sitting in my driveway watching the rain bead down the windshield when the call finally came. Unknown number, East Coast area code, I answered. Didn't say a word. A voice, calm but cracked with desperation, came through. Rebecca, we need to talk. I sipped my gas station coffee, let the pause breathe, then, my terms only. That's what quiet power sounds like. No shouting, no drama, just a fact laid bare. You burned the manual, now you have to live in the fire. They knew it, I knew it, and somewhere in a glass office, Sean was probably realizing for the first time that optics don't override compliance, and no amount of gel in the world can slick over a federal misstep like this one. We met in a nondescript conference room at a neutral site off the Beltway. DC-style damage control. No logos, no nameplates, just coffee that tasted like consequence and a clock ticking louder than it should have. The founder was already seated when I walked in. He didn't look at his phone once, just nodded at me the way old school men do when they know they've got blood on their hands but still want to shake yours. Across from him sat the federal liaison, Ms. Chambers. Black blazer, 4-ring binder, the kind of woman who doesn't blink unless a subpoena's involved. She'd reviewed the continuity chain, reviewed the breach, reviewed the Slack screenshots, and the termination order that now lived in 2 different agencies' inboxes. And she looked tired. I sat, didn't fidget, didn't smile, just opened my folder and placed a single page between us. 3 bullet points. No header, no threats, just the terms. Continuity restoration. I retain named security agent designation through project lifecycle with full DoD recognition and signature authority. Advisory control. I report independently to legal and federal oversight, not to corporate operations. My authority is not subject to internal review or VP discretion. Name rights retention. Any public-facing document, audit trail, or policy citing the Thornwatch NSA will use my legal name unchanged. No substitutions, no silent edits. The founder scanned it once. Chambers scanned it twice. Neither of them argued. They knew this wasn't a negotiation. It was a correction. The founder finally leaned back and muttered, Sean is on leave, pending review. I nodded once. That's between you and your board, he sighed. He was trying to clean house, fast-track modernization, make things more client-facing. I didn't let him finish. This isn't personal, I said, flat. It's protocol. Chambers finally spoke. We'll resume launch once verbal reconfirmation is complete. The compliance designation must be honored, or we'll recommend the contract be rebid under formal penalty review. Silence. Then she nodded. Do you accept the designation? I looked straight at her. I never vacated it. The founder glanced at the single-page sheet again, then quietly slid it back toward me with his initials in the margin. The deal was done. No apologies, no groveling. That wasn't what this was about. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't about hurt feelings or office politics or who looked better on camera. This was a firewall that worked exactly as it was designed to. Protect the system from its own arrogance. They broke the chain. I was the chain. And now I was the lock too. 3 days later, I was back on the internal roster, but not under staff. They filed me under a new designation, Independent Federal Compliance Liaison, NSA of record. Fancy way of saying I now report to no one but the rules themselves. My badge was reissued under contractor status. Same clearance, same digital keys, but now with a legal rider that made one thing crystal clear. I don't work for them anymore. I work with them, on terms they can't change. The new NDA came through with clauses baked in by my own attorney. Indemnity if the company screws up. Direct communication channels to the federal liaison. A non-interference section so ironclad it might as well have been laminated in titanium. And tucked near the bottom, a subtle clause that made legal twitch. Any future attempt to terminate or modify NSA designation without 60-day notice and federal concurrence shall be considered breach of contract, subject to immediate project freeze and referral. Sean tried to push back. Oh, he tried. He called an emergency board call from a vacation rental in Arizona, looked sunburned and rattled, like a man who'd been locked out of his own narrative. This undermines the chain of command, he barked. You're letting a former employee dictate federal engagement. But this time, the board didn't flinch. One director interrupted him mid-sentence. She's not former anything. She's the only reason this contract didn't implode. Another director muted him. The founder, from his square in the corner, just said, You broke protocol, Sean. She rebuilt it. Your input is no longer required. I watched it all unfold from my home office, hoodie on, mic off, while the federal compliance officer rejoined the call to confirm the revised kickoff. We acknowledge the updated designation, Chambers said, scanning her copy. Consultant of record, named security agent Rebecca Halden, confirmed and binding. That was it. No applause, no victory music, just confirmation that the structure had been restored, and this time, built with safeguards they couldn't touch. I didn't gloat, didn't post a LinkedIn update, didn't forward the email to anyone. I just added the revised document to my compliance archive, checked that the dual authentication on the vault was still live, emailed Chambers a single line, confirmed, standing by. There's a kind of satisfaction that doesn't feel like winning. It feels like alignment, like gravity pulling everything back where it belongs after someone tried to rearrange the laws of physics. This wasn't revenge, this was the restoration of a system that had rules for a reason. And this time, I was the reason they'd remember them. Final kickoff, same Zoom, same grid of government contractors, board members, and federal faces who now looked just a little more awake than last time. I logged in early, as always. Audio muted, camera off, reading the room before the room even knew it was being read. Trent Square, gone. His credentials had been formally revoked, access logs scrubbed like a bad idea never quite finished baking. Sean? Suspended indefinitely. Rumor was he'd hired a crisis PR firm, but no amount of Instagram damage control can undo a federal protocol breach. The founder was present, quiet, legal hovered, this time with notepads, not excuses. Everyone else just waited, like kids who'd been caught once and didn't want to test the paddle again. Then Chambers, the federal compliance officer, joined. Same gray suit, same steel in her voice. She adjusted her glasses, glanced at the sheet in front of her, and said it flat, procedural, like nothing had ever gone wrong. Before we begin, we'll need verbal confirm from the named security agent. My mic clicked on. Rebecca Halden, present, confirmed. That was all. No fanfare, no second takes, just that quiet weight of a system clicking back into place like a lock turning. There was a silence after that. Not awkward, not hesitant, just still. Then Chambers nodded once. Proceed. Slides loaded. Project Thornwatch resumed. A contract that almost died from ego now resurrected by ink and accuracy. Nobody dared call it a miracle. It wasn't. It was paperwork. Paperwork that lived, breathed, and bit when ignored. As the meeting churned on, I didn't say much else. My part was done. Not for applause, not for revenge, just for continuity. When the last deliverable was signed off, I closed the binder on my desk, still warm from the printer. I leaned back in my chair, exhaled once through my nose, and cracked my knuckles. Across my hoodie, faded but proud, were three simple words. Compliance is undefeated. You don't fire security, you trigger it.